This was the future of 2001 way back in 1968, a full year before men even landed on the moon. It paints an elegant picture of a vibrant, thriving space tourism and transportation industry complete with space hotels and routine in-flight courtesies that would be right at home on board modern commercial airline flights. Stanley Kubrick's masterpiece no doubt played a massive part in steering NASA away from the moon and into low Earth orbit, because in less than 2 years NASA would scrap plans for Apollos 18, 19, and 20 while beginning development of the space shuttle. Every single day, every single astronaut aboard the International Space Station spends roughly 2.5 hours exercising to, quote, mitigate the effects of a microgravity environment, end quote. To make matters worse, all the hours spent exercising don't even prevent the bone and muscle loss experienced in microgravity. It just slows the effects somewhat. According to NASA, noticeable bone and muscle loss begins taking place after just a week in zero G, with many astronauts, even relatively young ones, struggling to readjust to Earth gravity after only a few months in orbit. So, why do we continue to subject our best and bravest to such an unhealthy environment after 50 years? Well, some of you might already be typing away that we need space stations like the ISS or Lunar Gateway in order to perform microgravity experiments that we can't carry out here on Earth. But with all due respect, this is a myth, and here's why. In this famous scene from 2001, Heywood Floyd's spacecraft arrives at the space station and docks with it in the center for good reason. That's because this is the point in which the structure is moving the least. And because it's spinning the least, the very center is a region of zero G. You'll recall the same basic principle was shown in one of my favorite movies, Interstellar. So, yes, we can have Earth gravity for our astronauts and still have zero G just a ladder climb away. But what's even more impressive, and almost certainly a necessity in about 50 years' time, is a space station capable of accommodating astronauts from across the solar system. Imagine, if you will, a space station with not just one outer ring, but two inner rings as well. Such a space station will be able to service astronauts from anywhere in the solar system with 4 different levels of gravity. Do you call Earth or the clouds of Venus home? Then the outer ring is for you at around 1 G. What if you're from the planets Mars or Mercury? Then the next ring in is where you'll be most comfortable at 1/3 G. Finally, if you call the moon home, and I don't just mean our moon, but Io, Europa, Ganymede, Callisto, or Titan, then you'll be pretty much comfortable at 1/6 G, since thankfully all the large moons of the solar system have very similar surface gravities. And all this while still having a zero G center to work in. Such a station will be essential for helping visiting astronauts acclimate to the gravities of different worlds. At first, just sleeping in higher G, but then gradually spending more and more time in the gravity they'd need to adapt to. And granted, a moon to Earth adaptation seems impossible today, but there's also no telling what medical science will be capable of in 50 years' time. But at the very least, will likely see similar stations across the solar system, so those whose careers might lead them to other worlds will have access to higher and lower gravities in orbit. And yes, astronauts will have to adapt to lower gravities as well, as anyone familiar with how American astronauts struggled to walk on the moon can tell you. I hope you've enjoyed this somewhat brief first video on my new channel, the Better NASA Project. And if you have, please leave a like and consider subscribing. And if you're wondering how I settled on the channel name, it's pretty simple. I love NASA, but I also acknowledge that there's room for improvement. So my personal dream is to grow a channel so large that the revenue it makes can make a real difference. And it's why everything my channel makes will go towards such a cause. If you'd like to see a YouTuber do something with their wealth beyond enriching themselves, then I hope you'll support me and spread the word. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Come back next week when we kick off a new series examining the worlds our children and grandchildren will be colonizing in the next few decades. We start our journey off with my personal favorite planet, Mars.